All right, we are live here, USCFootball.com TV live show, Facebook Live, whatever you want to call it. We're in studio. I'm your host and publisher, Ryan Abraham, joined by Shotgun Spratling and Keely Eure.
Hello.
How you guys doing?
Good hand actions. I like
Thank you. I'm Vanna White.
We're kind of swirling around. Shotgun and I just finished a podcast. I literally published it about 10 seconds ago. Keely got here, plenty of time. She was early. Chris Trevito's feeling a little under the weather, so we'll try to get him on.
Wow, the whole team.
Later shows. Yeah, everyone's I'm feeling a little bit better. I told Shotgun I spent all morning scraping popcorn off the ceilings in my closet. So we're redoing the closet. There's popcorn on the ceiling from the old time. You have to spray it with water and scrape it down. I was covered in dust and probably asbestos and all kinds of crap. But here I am. We're doing it now. It's a busy day. How are you guys doing?
Good.
We're hanging in there. I mean, the whole staff is a bit under the weather. So I think one of our rivals tried to do it. Probably one of the other companies tried to sabotage us.
Wow. Or maybe it's
drop the flu. I mean, Keely and I had a flu game on.
Yeah.
We killed it though on Friday in the Pac-12 championship. We were like Jordan flu game.
Yeah, that was rough, but we made it.
We made it. And shout out, hopefully everyone, if you're here in Southern California somewhere, be safe if you're near fire zones and you got to evacuate and all that stuff. Yeah. So we do. Hopefully, the firefighters are doing an amazing job fighting those down. But yeah, all of us are pretty lucky. You're not in a bad area, are you, Keely, or is you kind of close to it?
I'm semi close to it, but it's not too bad.
Yeah. Here at the beach, there's not much. Shotgun's downtown, so if downtown's burning, we're all in trouble. Like
True.
All the high rises and stuff like that. So how this works, if you don't know, we do our little show here every Thursday at noon. Sometimes it moves around, but we want to make it interactive and answer your questions about the USC Trojan football team. So definitely go into the little comment box. Keely will be monitoring that. Hopefully you guys can hear us okay. Any other comments yet, or anyone's problems?
People are commenting already.
Okay, so you guys can hear us all right. So that's good. If we need to turn somebody up or down, like say, hey, Keely's too soft or whatever it is, we'll try to fix all that. So a little homework. We just recorded, Shotgun and I just recorded a podcast. Like I said, it should be up on USCFootball.com right now. I didn't even have time to tweet it out yet, but you can follow me on Twitter at Inside Troy. You can follow Shotgun at Shotgun SPR. You can follow Keely at Keely is my name, Keely. That's how you spell Keely. It's interesting. That's why she says it's her name, because people always get it, say Kelly or whatever the stuff is. But for this show, if you get some tweets and stuff and we see them, we'll talk about them. But go to the Facebook comments section and type in whatever your question is. We haven't done a show since USC won the Pac-12 championship game. We did one last Wednesday. We did it a day early because USC was playing on a Friday, so we can probably start off with some thoughts on USC winning the Pac-12 title. 11-2, guys. The Trojans are Pac-12 champions. I don't think the rest of the Pac-12 cared. They voted David Shaw as Coach of the Year, even though Clay Helton beat him twice, and David Shaw lost to San Diego State. I could see the argument for other people. I kind of went on a rampage on Twitter, as I usually do, and on the Peristyle. The only people I talked to that thought Clay Helton should not have been, or that thought David Shaw should have been Coach of the Year, were Stanford fans I've seen on Twitter and USC fans that hate Clay Helton. Those are the only people that thought Shaw deserved it more than Helton.
Interesting. I liked your Twitter rampages this week.
Really?
It was pretty good, yeah. Even when the bowl results came out and you were just going off on Larry Scott, that was good too.
I'm actually going to go on, John Wilner does a great job covering the Pac-12. I'm going to go on his podcast to talk about USC going independent and all that stuff. I went on that rampage. I'm like, bring back Reggie Bush. Here's the two things my offseason. Bring back Reggie Bush, and USC should explore going independent. Now, a lot of people agree, and some people are like, no. But the Pac-12 does not help the teams at the top. Like the SEC will help Alabama or Auburn or whatever. The Pac-12 doesn't do anything like that. And it's not like you need to help them, but the Pac-12 actively hinders them. Like, could you imagine Alabama and Auburn playing in week 2? That's essentially what the Pac-12 did. They played Stanford and USC in week 2. Like, nobody does that, but the Pac-12 does.
Can you also imagine Utah being undefeated, being number 1, losing to USC, not going to the championship game? USC loses the championship game, so the team you lost to and Utah still making it to the playoff? No, because
No
that's
way.
the same situation Alabama got with Auburn.
Yeah.
So the SEC knows how to work the system, apparently, and especially Nick Saban. So the Pac-12 is on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, where they're like, how does the system work? We should just not do any of those things to help teams out. No, let's put everybody on Fridays after they just traveled for a road game. That makes sense. That makes a lot
The
of
Pac-12
sense.
likes parity as opposed to teams making the playoff. If you want to be a relevant conference, it's about making the playoff. I think it's great, all the Olympic sports championships and all that kind of stuff, but you can't do that despite, you can't make sure that's the priority as opposed to those things are always going to be there, but you want your best teams to be able to make it. Washington lost on the road on a Friday night. Stanford went to freaking Australia. USC didn't have a bye, played on all these aspects of your best teams. You put them in horrible spots that you didn't need to put them in. Where Alabama, they have Mercer or whatever before they play Auburn. Like they set that up so if you screw up, it's on your own thing, not the conference. We don't need to go into all that stuff, but that's
And you look at
that's part
Alabama's
of my
schedule
rampage.
next year. I mean, they're all their tough games. There's basically a bye game before. I mean, all their road games. There's an easy team right before they go on that or an actual bye.
Right.
It's kind of tremendous by Nick Saban. Just like I'm just going to set this up this way.
Right.
Don't
and
worry,
they still
guys.
lose. And even if he loses, so they set it up so it's hard to lose. And even when you do lose, it doesn't matter. So it's like it's really set up very well. But yes, thanks, Keely. I'm glad you like my Twitter rampages.
I did.
I've done peristyle rampages too on the site because then you get. I love arguing with the people that are so anti Clay Helton that they are like, no, David Shaw was great. Like, did you watch Stanford play? Like, the arguments you make for USC that they didn't play up to their level of talent and they made wrong decisions. Stanford did all that stuff and lost more games. So they didn't start KJ Costello. Like, he was way better than Keller Chris, and they wouldn't and Shaw wouldn't start him until the end of the year. He played the whole game against USC, but he didn't play at all in the first game. So, whatever. That's all that kind of stuff. David Shaw's a great coach. He did not deserve to be coach of the year this year.
He had other years where he had opportunities, but he got the Lifetime Achievement Award or
That was
Decade
more of a
Achievement
lifetime
Award.
Yeah, I thought you should have given it to Todd Graham, who got fired. I mean, they were picked to finish 5th in the South. He finishes 2nd, behind USC. And I think Clay Helton should get credit for that ASU win because ASU went on a tear late in the season, beating Washington. They won the last 2 games. They won and USC boat raced them in Tempe, right? So Clay Helton should get credit for that because he sometimes you play a team that's not hot, and he played Arizona State when they were hot and just killed them.
Yeah. Plus, that was a season outlook changer because then it was like, okay,
Yeah.
ASU, okay, you can handle Arizona at home. You can. The season looked more manageable after that win.
Right.
Which was impressive.
Yeah, that was the gateway to win the South. They had to beat those Arizona schools, and it was funny. I had Dan Weber on the podcast a couple of days ago, and I have a screen over here where the Pac-12. I put the Pac-12 network on sometimes, and they had the USC Arizona game in 60 minutes. It was up there, and you kind of forget it was up. It was like 21-3 or something. Like USC's rolling, and then oh yeah, Arizona tied the game in the 4th quarter. Like. Isn't that weird? Like, you just think, they won by 2 touchdowns, right? They won by 14. But Arizona came back and scored that touchdown and got the 2-point conversion and, tied the game in the 4th quarter. You're like, yeah, that's why fans get upset because it's probably that game shouldn't have been tied in the 4th quarter.
And for whatever reason, I told Keely after the game that night, I was like, I just never thought they were really in danger of losing.
Yeah.
I didn't either.
Didn't
It's like,
feel like they were
okay,
going to lose
they
at
tied
all.
it up. I think USC's still going to win this game. Whatever.
Other games, you thought, oh, this could be a problem and stuff. But that one, it just didn't seem like it. But
See, and I was there, and I kind of semi-remember that. And it goes to prove Helton's point after the Pac-12 championship, he said, no one's going to remember every score this season. They're just going to remember that this team was Pac-12 champions.
Yeah.
And the same thing in 30
so true.
years when
Yeah.
people look at Clay Helton's record, like, wow, they were really good that year. Nobody's going to be like, they didn't really beat them up as much as they could.
Yeah, no one's
Yeah.
gonna break down. Okay, week 6 against this opponent in the 3rd quarter. That doesn't happen over time. So I think he has a point. And also our point that we said coming into the game that if USC won, it was gonna shape the whole season, and
Yes.
it definitely has. I mean, now they're Pac-12 championships. They're champions. They're going to the Cotton Bowl. Everyone's excited, and yes, there's angst about the Pac-12, the playoff, but still, it changed how you feel about this. So
it does, and I think
right.
a lot of people that are the Helton haters, I was like, hey, yeah, USC should go out and get a big name coach. I was totally in that camp and all that stuff, but you can't ignore stuff that he's done. It hasn't been perfect, but I think it's important that you win the Pac-12 championship. But, the last time USC did that, Pete Carroll was the head coach, right? It seems like forever ago. The Pac-12 South had never won the championship game. So this year, I think it's a really nice step. Yes, people had playoff expectations, aspirations, and, they start the season ranked fourth. They're now ranked eighth. Though if they beat Ohio State, they'll move up, and, maybe they finish sixth or something. Who knows? But I think the next step of winning the Rose Bowl last year was great. I mean, amazing. Then this year, you're talking about winning the Pac-12. I think that's a really important step. You have to do that. And, they had a head coach that didn't have any experience. It's kind of a progressive thing. Is he learning on the job? Yeah, but you hired a guy that was going to have to learn on the job. I think it's a pretty good, way to go as far as winning the Rose Bowl and then having a chance to win the Fiesta Bowl, and you won the conference.
Shall we get into questions?
Sure.
This is a reminder, if you're just coming in, put in questions and we will answer them.
Yes.
Tarek, I always mess up his name. I'm sorry.
Tarek. There's one with a K and then one with a Q. I think it's Tarek with a K.
K, yes.
Yeah.
If you were Clay Helton, what draft-eligible players would you tell to stay another year, and which ones would you encourage to enter the 2018 NFL Draft?
Peace out, Rojo. It was great having you for 3 years. Hope you had a great career. Hope you do well in the NFL.
Yep.
I probably would tell Sam to come back, actually.
Yes.
I think, I've debated this back and forth, and there's positives and negatives of whether he should leave. I think he can still develop his game a lot next year and go into the NFL much better prepared a year later. Rasheem Green is kind of on the fence. I would like to. That would be the one guy where I would say, hey, I'd like to see that NFL evaluation and see what they have to say and see whether he can come back. I mean, Kenichi Udeze, his tweet yesterday, I think you guys saw,
so funny.
Talking about how when he first got here, he wanted to body slam Rasheem
multiple times.
He's like, yeah, multiple times. And he said, just when he finally bought into being coachable and not just relying on his talent and how much he's developed. And I think the last 2 years has been such a dramatic turnaround from him not starting that Alabama game and it being Noah Jefferson, the guy that was going to be the starter and going to be the guy they relied on. And instead, Noah Jefferson gets nicked up and then, ends up leaving the program. Rasheem has to step in, and he's just developed since that point and just been an absolute warrior this year. That'd be a guy I'd want to see the draft evaluation on. Cam Smith probably should come back. Again, that would be a draft evaluation. If they tell him, if the NFL people think he's a first-round pick, you go. I think that's usually the case. If you get a draft evaluation in its first round, you probably should leave and go ahead and go in and not risk an injury or anything else that could ding your stock in the future. However, the quarterback situation is the one. It's a little bit different, and I think every quarterback situation has to be taken into individual consideration just because of how much they are a face of a franchise and how much pressure is then thrown on them and how different the successful quarterbacks have come about becoming successful quarterbacks in the NFL, that I think you have to take each one of those on an individual basis. But any other position, usually first-round pick, then you leave. Otherwise, you have to really consider why you were leaving. And, if it's a situation like Nickel Roby, go for it, and he has made his bones in the NFL and done a tremendous job there. Iman Marshall, I probably would tell to come back. I think he can showcase so much more next year.
Yeah.
He's shown the last couple games, actually. He's been really good since he's come back from the injury, which makes me wonder if maybe there was something lingering beforehand.
Interesting.
But I think, or maybe it just took a couple weeks off to, for him to clear his mind. But if he comes back and plays like he has the last 2 weeks, I think, he can really push his stock up from where it is sitting right now. Anybody else that stands out to you, Ryan?
No, I think we've seen cases in the last few years where there's guys that shouldn't leave athletically, but for family reasons or whatever. They were just yeah, Damian Mom was just going to leave. It doesn't matter if he doesn't get drafted. I don't know if there's anyone like that. I think most everyone this year, it's going to be based on if they can get drafted. So a couple of guys like a Cam Smith, I don't think he's going to be a combine, hero. I think he'll probably stay. I think Iman Marshall would, the plan was to leave after 3 years, but he just doesn't have enough on tape that's going to be impressive. I think I think those guys are going to end up staying. So I think this will be the one year that more people end up staying than going. Usually USC, it's always like these guys leave that probably shouldn't be leaving. I just don't think that's going to happen this year. But
what about Marvell Tell? I mean, he's a guy super athletic. I think the NFL scouts really like him. The fact that he can range, sideline to sideline, can deliver a hit as well. I think that's another guy you have to look at that evaluation and determine. I think it's five. The school gets 5 evaluations. Is that correct?
I think so. Yeah. He looks the part, and I think he might do well in all that kind of testing stuff. So yeah, maybe he's someone that ends up going that you wouldn't have expected.
There's always one guy. There's always one guy that's like leaves, and everyone like kind of scratches their head.
Like George Farmer, who had like 20 career catches, and he left. You're like,
yeah, the Damian Mamas, the.
I think you'll see Toa Lobanon come back. I think if you're doing the evaluations, you give it to Cam Smith, you give it to Sam Darnold, you give it to Marvell Tell. Those are the guys that I would tell Rojo, like, you don't even need the evaluation.
Yeah,
we know
just go.
You're good. Go.
Isn't there a stat that like quarterbacks who have 30 or more starts under their belt do better in the NFL?
There was something like that I saw, yeah.
I remember Dan was telling Darnold that during PRPs, and Sam was like, "Oh,
I think it was if it's 3 seasons. There hasn't been a starting quarterback in the Super Bowl in the last like 15, 20 years that didn't have 3 years of starting in college. Yeah. I think is what it was.
Yeah. Darnold already has more starts than Mark Sanchez had, so I mean, a lot more.
How many Super Bowls did Mark Sanchez get to?
I mean, he won like 4 road playoff games.
But how many Super Bowls?
He has yeah. But I'm just saying, like, if you want to talk about Darnold's career is already longer than Sanchez at USC.
Yeah, and it's a longer season as well than what you saw 15 years ago.
In that same vein, because the original question was if we were Clay Helton. Now this is a general question by multiple people. Do you think Sam is going to stay?
I think it's still up in the air.
Yeah?
I kind of think up in the air, but if I was betting, I would bet him that he would come back. Like, I kind of feel like he's going to come back. We talked about this with Shotgun in the podcast we just did. I think you can argue like all the football stuff, but I think just as a person, I think he's more of a kid than say like a Josh Rosen, where this is going to be man stuff, NFL. And Shotgun mentioned like, you got to be the face of a franchise for the Jets or for the Giants or something. Like, that's a whole lot on somebody. And I'm not that saying that he can't handle it, but I still think he's still kind of a young guy. He's a little bit, immature in some of those aspects. So another year would probably help him. So I kind of feel like that's why he'll come back.
And you kind of look at the draft board. What teams are at the front of the draft, or what teams have told you, hey, we may be interested in trading up for you if you perform well, leading up to the draft. Is there a team that he can go and sit behind somebody that's really good? What if somehow the Patriots worked out a trade and said, hey, we think Tom Brady's got a year, maybe 2 left, and we want you to come learn on him? Yeah, that's the situation you go for. Or the way that Aaron Rodgers was kind of, was groomed underneath Brett Favre, or even Brett Hundley, how he's been groomed under Aaron Rodgers. I think if he has an opportunity to learn under someone for a year and then take over that job, that's a lot different than him being thrown in and all of a sudden you're in that New York media market. You need to save us right now.
Yeah.
We want to win right now. Why are you not? Why have you thrown this many interceptions? Why are you turning the ball over? And then it can become a snowball and you don't get the development that maybe he would get from an extra year at college, I think.
And Darnold has admitted that the pressure on him this season kind of crept into his head, let alone this is just college. When you go to that next level, that's an intense pressure.
Yeah.
And who knows what he'll do in that environment. So I don't know. Matthew says, any truth to JT Daniels reclassifying?
Read the war rooms. I will kind of go there. There's lots of rumors out there as far as Gerard has been saying USC's, got a plan as far as the quarterback go, but we're not really talking too much more about what that plan is.
Michael says, what was the decision to put UW in the Fiesta?
Ryan, you want to handle?
Oh, so the reason Washington went to the Fiesta, so it's kind of similar to what happened last year. USC did not go to the championship game. Colorado did. They lost, and a lot of people felt USC would jump them. In this case, Washington ended up jumping TCU, who went to – so Washington didn't play, obviously. TCU went to the championship game, got boat raced, similar to what Washington did to Colorado last year, and then Washington jumped ahead significantly above TCU. The problem was everyone thought USC would go to the Fiesta Bowl. They did not want a USC-Penn State matchup, but they also because that happened last year. They also didn't want Ohio State going to the Fiesta Bowl because they've been there the last 2 years. So Ohio State was going to go to the Cotton. They were going to put USC in the Fiesta Bowl, but that would be where Penn State goes. So then they ended up moving USC to the Fiesta Bowl, and that allowed Washington to go. USC to the Cotton Bowl, and that allowed Washington to go to the Fiesta Bowl. If that kind of this crazy thing, but mainly Ohio State didn't want to go. They didn't want them to go to the Fiesta Bowl 3 years in a row.
Yeah, it really had nothing to do with USC, and I mean it was kind of a rough day for USC fans. If you were watching this, you're like, hey, there's an outside chance, this little slim hope. You're not even close. You're in an eighth. No Power 5 team, no Power 5 champion has ever finished below seventh. Has ever finished that low. It's like, wow, this is kind of shocking there. And you're like, well, we're going to go to the Fiesta Bowl. We can drive out on the weekend. It's a Saturday game. Yeah. So we can go, I can drive after work, go to the Fiesta Bowl, go to a party, get ready to go to the game the next day. Instead, now you got to fly out, either a day earlier or a couple days earlier to go to Dallas, which is farther away. You can't drive anymore. That's a much longer drive. Done that. Don't do it. Just fly. And then also, if you look at just
the game's on a Friday instead of a Saturday.
Yeah. Game's on a Friday instead of a Saturday. And if you look at the USC just athletic schedule, there's nothing at all scheduled on that Saturday. There's no games in any other sport. However, USC women's and men's basketball, I know for sure, I think women's as well, both open Pac-12 play on that Friday. So how many people are going to be in the Galen Center to watch USC play a really bad Washington team, even though they won last night against Kansas, the biggest upset of the season so far. But just to throw a little basketball in there. But how many people are going to go to the Galen Center to see that when USC football is playing either on TV or you're going to get like 42 fans in the Galen Center and it's going to be 41 parents and there's that one fan that's always there.
Nice.
Yeah. So in that sense, Blitzer Dan says, do you think USC got snubbed by the Fiesta Bowl because of Ohio State representing the past few years?
I think
that's why it happened.
And I think definitely.
But do you think USC was unfairly snubbed?
No, I think it's a good matchup. I think they just wanted that matchup, and the way it kind of worked out, I think it's just unfortunate for USC fans that it's it's a day earlier. They have to travel farther. All those things versus could have been in the Fiesta Bowl, and it's a driving trip for USC. They would have a better opportunity to represent well there. I think.
Yeah, and it's harder to travel on that whole Friday. Coming back on a Saturday, it's expensive.
Yeah, and it's you right before New Year's Eve, so there you have more money and stuff. So it's just the way it worked out wasn't great for USC fans. Should be a tremendous matchup though.
Yeah,
it's the game you want to see. Maybe it's not the location USC fans would want it.
Yeah. George says, we all know Ryan probably sports a Tyler Vaughn's tattoo, and Coach Hyde a Levi Jones one. But Keely and Shotgun, who do you think languished on the bench this year, wasting their talent?
I already know mine. That's obviously Jamel Cook not playing special teams.
Oh, that's a good one.
The high horse I've been on for a while now.
You have.
Just because why not? If Clay Helton's going to say, hey, special teams is a great place for our young guys to get experience and to get used to game speed and stuff, well, why not that guy? He's a super athletic 4-star safety that turned nickelback, turned cornerback. Maybe he's not ready to play defense yet, but he definitely should have been on special teams.
Yeah, I agree.
Free number 21s.
Yeah, I agree with Tyler Vaughn, even though I'm hopping on the Ryan train. Yeah, I definitely Tyler Vaughn. This doesn't count, but Michael Pittman, he had an injury, so he wasn't necessarily languished on the bench. But
Until his dad went on that Twitter rampage.
Yeah, but you saw in ASU flashes of what Michael Pittman can do, and then the championship game was like, oh.
But Pittman also was a product of Stephen Mitchell getting hurt in the Notre Dame game. He nicks up his shoulder. He's not able to play. Pittman gets those extra reps.
Pittman also got hurt in that game, too.
In the Notre Dame game?
Yeah, remember he slammed his helmet down?
No, that was at home. That was the Arizona game.
No, he slammed his helmet down.
Ooh, we got fighting.
Save
it for the family feud.
I don't remember.
We literally talked about this. And Pittman slammed his helmet down and then got up and then walked.
That was at home.
That was at Notre Dame. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But it's true. Okay, whatever.
Anyways.
Michael Pittman. Even though that doesn't count. Or Tyler Vaughn.
Maybe it wasn't Notre Dame.
I told you.
Yeah, Harvey Hyde, if you listen to our podcast, he's always big on Levi Jones. Like, why the heck is Levi Jones not playing more?
I also agree with that one.
And I've said he should get a couple plays. I don't know that he should be playing a ton, but just a couple of those guys you would like to see a couple plays here and there to get that extra experience. Mm-hmm. Keely Ross is another guy that I think, and no fault of his, I think is just the product of who was in front of him, and Ajene Harris has been really good. When he went down, I thought Keely played really well, and I think if you give him an opportunity, he could go in. And they actually had to, I don't know if you guys noticed, Biggie went out for the whole fourth down stand. That whole, the last 4 or 5 plays of that, Iman Marshall was off the field. So what they did, the last 2 plays, obviously they're in a heavy, goal line situation, so there's no cornerbacks at all on the field. But before that, they pushed Ajene Harris outside because Jack Jones was already hurt, and Akili Ross actually came in when they went to nickel one time in that. But that's the flexibility of an Ajene Harris gives you. But Akili Ross is another guy that I think next year, and maybe it depends on what Marvell Tell does, but you could see him possibly move back to safety, or maybe there's some changes there. But I think you got to get him out on the field next year.
Agreed.
Yeah, I read all about that in Shotgun's participation chart story. So go check that out on uscfootball.com. Lots of details. I always tell you it's a must-read every week.
Yeah, it only took me like 14 hours of compiling and writing and everything,
Yeah.
So probably should check it out.
Yeah, your brainchild. Matthew says, is Tyson Helton going to Tennessee?
What?
That was a rumor this morning. Bruce Feldman, our buddy. I'm going to actually have lunch with Bruce, so maybe I'll chat with him, get some scoop. But yeah, my wife and Bruce have been texting a lot because finally it looks like they found their head coach. We thought T. Martin might be a guy that kind of goes over there with them. There was apparently some talks. People had reported, but T's not going there. But the name that Bruce Feldman brought up, which is kind of a shocker, is Tyson Helton, is someone that they were going to talk to. So, yeah, I don't know. That's what Bruce was saying. Usually there's a couple of people you trust when they're talking about coaches, like a Brett McMurphy or a Bruce Feldman. So I would certainly not just dismiss it, but that's the first I had heard of it.
Justin says, what are the chances that the playoff expands into 8 teams in the next couple of years, especially if problems like this year keep happening?
I will just go ahead and say, listen to the podcast that Ryan and I just did. Basically, it's not going to happen because the season's already getting too long for college players that aren't getting paid, and the fact that you're having to stretch the training camp earlier, and the fact that no one's going to want to – it's about the money, and no one's going to want to give up a game, which is what it would take during the regular season. You would have to rescind the 12-game schedule, push it back to 11, and then if you equalize it out so that every conference had 8 conference games, maybe you can even make it more specific about how you have to schedule your non-conference games too, would be better. But no one's going to give up that 12th game. Auburn's selling 70,000 tickets for to play. When Alabama plays Mercer or when they play Wofford or whoever it is, they're still selling a bunch of tickets. They're not going to give up that gate just for the sake of college football. Money would have to be thrown at all the schools to fix it, and I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think they gotta make things even with the conferences too. I mean, you look at the SEC, Alabama and Georgia are both in the playoff. They haven't even played each other this year, so that's crazy. Like that could never happen in the Pac-12. So you got to make it. It's got to be an even playing field, and that's just not there. So I think you probably have to do that first before you can do anything else.
Ryan says, not you, who will have the more entertaining Pac-12 press conference in 2018? Herm Edwards or Mike Leach? Pac-12 Media Days is going to be lit. Chip Kelly?
It is. They have to have those guys on different days.
Lit.
They have to have those guys on different days because otherwise no one would show up the other days. Herm, I think, is going to be a glorious disaster as a head coach, but he will make that program very interesting. If you saw any of his press conference stuff, he had to ask if the Sun Devil pin, the pitchfork, was going up or down. Someone from, I think it was Devil's Digest, asked him a question, and he went off like, Devils, like, not, they've put out a statement saying he knew that they were the Sun Devils, but the person...
They put out a statement?
The fact that you have to do that.
He was on like a radio show, and they emailed me like, hey, if you want to run this, and they showed, because they know I was talking about it. So they sent me like, what he said is that he knew it was the Sun Devils or whatever, but the way you listened to it, it sounded like he didn't know what the heck Devils was. Like it was referring to the program that he's now running. He looked at a jersey. Did you see that? Like it was a jersey that was, is this a kid's jersey?
No, he was like, is this a women's jersey?
Yeah.
They're like, no.
It's a fitted jersey. He's been out of the game for a long, long time. I think this is going to be an epic disaster, but he will be interesting. He's not going to be as interesting as Leach, because Leach is the most, but he will be close.
Yes.
Thoughts?
As a player, is it weird when they're probably still attached to Todd Graham, and then you have this guy who's kind of not really into, doesn't really know what's happening? Is it hard to buy into something like that?
You know, I think this situation in particular is kind of like if you're working somewhere and you have managers and stuff that you like and, they take care of you, and then there's a new big boss that comes in. But the boss is kind of aloof and what is going on with that? Like, it doesn't matter though because you don't see them very often. I think that's kind of how this hurt. The way they've set it up and they're trying to structure this like an NFL team that he's going to be, the GM I think is what they said.
Yeah,
so, the coordinators, they kept everyone. They basically paid $12 million to switch out Todd Graham for Herm Edwards, and Herm Edwards is just going to be the face of the program, I think, is what their goal is. It sounds like. It's like, hey, we got this new guy that's the face. These guys are the ones that are important. These are the guys going to be taking care of. You're talking about the coordinators.
But like Keely, you're like 22 years old. You're a little bit older than these guys, but you're talking about like 16-year-olds. They don't know who the hell Herm Edwards is. Like, they don't know. Like, they might have seen him on a meme or something. Now, their parents, a lot of them would know, but like, they have no clue. They don't sit home and watch they're watching crap on their phone, YouTube stuff. They're not watching like ESPN shows. And he's still there. Hey, I tweeted a picture of him. He's still on NFL Today or whatever the show is, NFL Live, like talking about like Ryan Shazier, and like he's not out. You see, Chip Kelly's out recruiting. Like, this is just going to be a disaster.
Wait, with an early, there's a new signing day that's going to be in, what is that, 2 weeks now?
Yes.
It's not an important recruiting time, is it?
No, yes. Like, what would you, at least he has his whole staff in place, but he's still doing TV stuff. I would say, do you think the kids that are 16 years old are going to know who he is?
No.
I thought it was interesting that USC didn't really recruit last week. And even though they have 3 weeks to go, and they are all on the road, they've been traveling about, but you could start recruiting last week. And I thought it was interesting just that they didn't do any local in-home visits or anything like that. And there was just kind of an opinion. I mean, it was just kind of a choice by Clay Helton. It's like, hey, we're going to focus on the game.
Right.
Whether that choice is correct or incorrect, I just thought it was interesting because a lot of times you'll still see coaching staffs, even though they're planning, for a championship game, still on the road trying to recruit. USC chose to focus in on that Pac-12 championship. It shows you how much that championship meant to this group as well, having not won since 2008. And credit to them for pulling it off. But you see USC now real heavy on the road. But hey, what does it matter? The head coach gets one official in-home visit, so I guess Herm Edwards is kind of looking at it like, I'll just save mine for the last couple weeks.
As far as USC goes, it does help to be the Pac-12 champion. Use that as a recruiting tool.
Yes.
So focus on that, then recruit with that.
And they've been out, all over the country in the last couple of days, so they've really hit the ground hard. I know I talked to one assistant coach. I was like, good luck, have fun celebrating this. He's like, got a flight early in the morning. I'm heading out to Utah. So, he was basically flying. I think he was flying back to LA with a team and then leaving the next morning to get on the recruiting trail. So they were wasting no time to get back on it. But going into it, they spent time focused on the game itself.
Jeb Edwards says, what's the deal with Clancy? Is he going to stick around another year? Is he the right defensive coach? He says, I think he's the right defensive coach, but we need a new DB coach. Any suggestions? Anyone available? ?
Well, Demetrius Martin's available. UCLA let him go. I'm blank on his name. The guy that was at Nebraska, who's Southern California ties.
Dante.
I'm sorry.
Dante.
Yeah. So
can't think of his last name.
yeah. Dante. Whatever. But both great recruiters.
Dante Williams.
I think Clancy's sticking around, and I think Shock and I talked about this a little bit. I like the philosophy. I like the fact that they force negative plays. Now, they give a bunch of plays too, but I think it just suits the kind of athletes USC has better, where they're forcing negative plays. And it's hard to recover in a college team to recover when you get a sack or something, big tackle for a loss. It's not easy to bounce back from that. So I kind of like the philosophy. It doesn't always work, but it's like he's got his own philosophy. This is what he does, and you're kind of rolling with it, and it's fine. But I do think they could make a few changes. I think the DBs have not performed very well, and that's one area you could look at.
Agreed.
But yeah, who knows? The guy from across town could. He's not being retained by Chip Kelly.
And someone asked on the podcast have we heard any names? Well, you're not going to hear a ton of names until they say, hey, we're getting rid of someone. So don't expect there to be a hot board for DB coaches or linebacker coach or any position until that position is open. Now the question, I'm really interested to see what they do with that 10th coach. And if they make decisions to get rid of anyone, that could also factor into that. The fact that Clancy has kind of been a middle linebackers coach as well as a defense coordinator. Do you see guys that are doing multiple positions anymore, or do you see even some changes in the way that they've done some things in that regard as well?
You got special teams and tight ends with Baxter that could make some changes there. It'll be interesting to see, and it'll be interesting. Clay Helton fired a bunch of guys after he got the job, and what was it? They lost. What was the last game of the season? Was it Oregon they lost to or something? And they
lost to Stanford in the Pac-12 championship.
And that's when they fired everybody. Yeah. So it was after that one. I don't see him like firing a bunch of people, but I think he could like try to help a couple guys get a job somewhere, and then there's like a mutual parting of ways or whatever. I kind of think he'll do it that way. I don't know what you guys think, but.
I mean, I keep saying it'll be the test of Helton to see the moves he makes in the offseason, especially because we know that it needs to happen, but these are his guys and people he's close with, and we've seen that he can't really make cutthroat decisions when he's close to people like that. So I'm very curious to see if he's kind of grown in that area or what he'll do with that. Maybe your route where it's just easier and easier for everyone, at least for the media, to handle the parting of ways.
And Lynn Swann apparently said that he's not going to force any changes. So if that holds true, then it'll be up to Clay.
What do you guys think about Lynn Swann having to like confirm Helton's position right after they won the championship game?
I was there in that scrum, and I think Zach Helfrand, rest in peace from Zach. No, he's moving. He's gone. He's not gone. He's just
rest
left
in peace
the beat.
to the USC beat.
Yeah, he said goodbye to the USC beat. But we love Zach. He started talking to Lynn, and then everyone kind of jumped in around, and everyone was asking him questions. So he was being asked about it more than anything. And he was I think he was very supportive of Clay Helton. It was really loud, so it was hard to hear everything, but he was very supportive. And he was very specific about like what Shotgun said, that he's going to let the head coach be the head coach. He's not going to force him to make changes to the staff. That's his job. Now, behind the scenes, will he be like, yeah, you should probably get rid of some guys? Maybe he will. I don't know. But at least publicly, he wasn't saying that. What else we got?
Let me see. Sorry. There's a lot of just like random.
A lot of comments and stuff. Yeah. Thank you for.
Here was a long one earlier. I don't know if you saw this one, but as a counterpoint to the idea that USC should have had a formal coaching search 2 years ago when Clay Helton was hired, considering that Dabo Swinney, Lincoln Riley, and Kirby Smart are three of the four head coaches destined for this year's college football playoffs, and of those three, none had previous head coaching experience, can USC truly be faulted for hiring Clay Helton? Note that Swinney and Riley were internal hires as well. I think the difference there, at least for Lincoln Riley and Kirby Smart, is that the guys they were under prior to that, whereas Clay Helton was under
successful.
Were Bob Stoops and Nick Saban versus Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian.
Right.
And nothing against those guys. I still think Lane Kiffin is going to end up being a successful head coach in the long run. But at the time that he was underneath them, there's a lot of ups and downs underneath those two coaches. It's not like Clay Helton was Pete Carroll's guy, and you say, Pete Carroll trusted this guy. It was turmoil rather than Pete Carroll's leaving for the Seattle Seahawks, and you're like, well, Clay Helton's been his guy for 5 years, so we'll just move him up, which has kind of been the case with some of these other ones.
Right. Exactly. It's not like those guys were really successful assistant coaches under really successful head coaches. That was not the case for Clay. So just because it's worked before doesn't mean you should do it. Now, it's already happened. This was 2 years ago. It's like, that's done. But you're not going to convince me that it was the right move back then. Like, they could have done something to get a bigger spot. Now, we don't know. Clay might be the best head coach that's ever lived. Like, he might be better than Nick Saban. But he's just, I think at your USC, you let him kind of sow his oats somewhere else first. But it's already happened. That's water under the bridge. He's sowing his oats now. Won the Rose Bowl, won the Pac-12, so it's working out pretty well. We'll see. And there's a lot of people like, well, once Sam Darnold leaves, it's going to blah, blah, blah. But, he's going to have a chance to kind of, build his legacy and see what happens here. If it starts going downhill, then, there's people going to be on him. They're on him this year, like Keely said, and he was 11-2. So
The problem with that hire wasn't Clay Helton per se. It was how they went about getting Clay Helton.
yeah.
Yeah. Matthew says, do you think T. Martin gets unfairly criticized?
Yeah, I think so. I think, just from people we've talked to, it's not all him. If you're going to blame all the play calling, there's multiple people that are involved in that. So I think he's the face of it, and he gets the blunt of the blame. But I think if you're the head coach, you could make things clear, like, hey, this guy's calling this guy's calling that. They keep it kind of vague, and then I think that, people get mad at T.
Yeah, I think it's never as black and white as it seems.
Yeah. And he does a lot. I mean, he does way more than his fair share on the recruiting front. So there's a lot on his plate.
Also, the wide receivers was the group that really needed development this season. And he's the offensive coordinator. And he said, I don't have enough time to do all of it. Because he helps Sam a lot. Because
Yeah.
Sam refers to T as one of his coaches, like as a quarterback coach. So he has his hands full.
And if you want to look at a position group that's done well, the guys that are in the NFL, there's a lot of good wide receivers.
Particularly this year. Those guys really broke out. And, a lot of them credit T. Martin if you talk to them, with their development at USC in particular. So, and that's another place where USC, maybe they get a 10th coach. Maybe it goes towards a receiver position or just helping out T. Martin in some way on that offensive side.
Yeah. Gerald says, do you see Jamel Cook or Levi Jones transferring due to not playing, or any other player that might feel disappointed in not playing enough?
Levi Jones in particular. I'll let Ryan get to Jamel Cook in a second, but
He was gearing up.
because he's gearing up for it. I know. So I'm gonna let him, rev the engine for a minute. Levi Jones, his father tweeted, 2 weeks ago, I think, and he tweeted Levi's finalist, and his father was an NFL linebacker. He tweeted his finalist and said it was Florida State, 6-6. It was UCLA, losing record, fire the coach. He's like, it looks like Levi made the right choice. And all the other choices, either going through coaching changes or just, poor records as well. So I don't think you'll see Levi Jones going anywhere. I think he's got a big future with USC.
Yeah.
His playing time's only going to expand. I mean, we want to see it more now, but it's only going to expand, especially with the potential of Cam Smith leaving. So I think Levi Jones, maybe even he moves outside next year. If Cam Smith stays, maybe he moves in that Uchenna Nwosu role. You never know. So I think you're going to see some movement at the linebacker position with this incoming class as well. But Levi Jones is not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think he's done enough. I don't see him leaving. Like Shotgun said, he's going to progress. With Jamel Cook, he's not progressed. And I would be shocked if he's on the team next year.
And Levi Jones has become USC's most used special teams player. He has been the guy. He's on every special teams basically except for the kicking unit. So when USC kicks field goals or extra points, every other unit basically he's on.
Mark says, what's the quarterback situation if Darnold leaves?
Bleak, dire. Well, you've seen Matt Fink, right? He had that 51-yard run when he came in the game. Again, USC is the worst at getting their backups in the game. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's just been it's history. It's years and years of not being able to play the guys that are behind the starter. From Pete Carroll not wanting to put in an NFL guy, Mark Sanchez, when John David Booty broke his finger in the game and they end up losing to Stanford. Like, that kind of stubbornness, whatever it is, it's like built into the USC coaching staff. It's like they don't ever do, the fact that Sam Darnold came in last year after, 3 games was like, that just never happened around USC. So, but they don't do a good enough job, and especially when you're not blowing teams out like you should, you're not getting Matt Fink more reps. Now, he got some, but he didn't get enough. Jack Sears redshirted. I think he was struggling a little bit with the transition from high school to college. Maybe he's ready, but I don't think he'd be ready. It looks like Fink now. And then whatever the solution ends up being, you're talking about, either a true freshman like JT Daniels graduating early like John David Booty did and coming in, getting a transfer like a Shea Patterson, which I don't think he's going to, that would happen, but maybe somebody else, or another freshman like a Jack Tuttle. Right now, to me, it looks like Matt Fink, and we just don't know enough if he would be anywhere near, I don't think he would be, but anywhere near like what Sam Darnold does.
I don't think he'd be near Sam Darnold. And I think you'd see changes to the offense, though, to try to use his strengths more and be able to run the ball. You see more of the zone read stuff, which then, puts your quarterback in danger of injuries. You've seen that across. And if that happens, then USC especially, they're either going to have Jack Sears, a redshirt freshman, and a true freshman if JT Daniels were to reclassify, or a big question mark. You either have another true freshman and somebody they bring in, or, because the Shea Patterson one is the big wild card, and that would have to take, I think he wants to transfer before the new semester, so I think that would take Sam Darnold making a decision a little bit earlier than expected.
I interrupt this for breaking news. It is officially official, apparently. Not official according to Tennessee, but 2 people have broken that Tyson is going to UT.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me...
Vols Quest and Chris Lowe of ESPN have reported that Tyson is going to UT.
And if that happens, it kind of clears things for the play calling.
Yeah.
Who is really making the play calls? Now that, and I think if T doesn't take a head coaching job somewhere, which he could still be a candidate at some of the schools that are open right now, with the SMUs, the UCFs, the jobs that are currently available. If he does not take it, then I think he can, really put his stamp on, and especially if Sam Darnold were to come back, I think he could make a even bigger case of, hey, he should be a head coach at a Power 5 program and have a really good opportunity next offseason if he does not leave anywhere.
I'm getting tweets from Steve Mason. They're asking me questions on Twitter and stuff. It's like, hey, jump into our live show. We're
the life of Ryan Abraham.
Yeah.
But I mean, definitely not the USC person people thought was going to go to Tennessee.
That's true, yeah.
No, that's it's very strange.
That's so true. Which makes me wonder, do you think maybe T was like, here's Tyson? I don't know.
But it does, I think there have been too many cooks in the kitchen, so this is kind of nice that, that wouldn't be the case. But, I'm not saying Tyson Hill should be fired. He's, one of the nicest dudes around. I love talking to Tyson and stuff. But if you had to fire your brother, that's not easy to do. No. So in this kind of situation, he got a job somewhere else, then, good for him. And I feel like, because Clay Helton was learning from Sark and Kiffin, where you're just not like these, talk about the guru thing. They're not like gurus, where Tyson Elson was under more of a guru, like Jeff Brom and that kind of offensive scheme. So I feel like there's some potential there. We just haven't really seen it. So now we'll see it at Tennessee, I guess.
Another scenario that could play out if T. Martin were to stay the offensive coordinator at USC for next season. He has a successful season, whatever. He takes a head coaching job elsewhere. You see Tyson Helton come back as the offensive coordinator at USC. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened either. And he would be, because he could show himself at Tennessee, especially if they have a good year, then there's not a big question mark if T. Martin were to leave and Tyson Helton were to have been promoted this offseason.
Yeah.
Nice. Breaking news. All right.
Breaking news.
It's hard. I tweeted Steve Mason hey, come into our live show. We're talking about it right now.
People are asking, when does USC return back to practice for the Cotton Bowl? We don't know.
They might just skip it and just go right to the game. We haven't heard.
That's
this is finals week, right, Keely?
Yes,
so
it is.
Would expect it to be next week then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Monday and Tuesday were dead days, which is study days. Then they have finals all the way till next Wednesday. And then they're officially done.
So they're probably not going to do practice until, they might not do next week either. they might wait until the week. So what is that?
If they're finished on Wednesday, they'll definitely practice Thursday for sure. Not before.
What they've liked to do, though, is create game weeks each week, right?
Yeah.
So do they wait until
they would at least
Sunday, Monday,
even
Tuesday?
If they do Thursday, even if they do the normal Thursday walkthrough practice, they want to get them back on the field, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Which is why I think they might practice before then. Because you schedule your exams. That's still the way it goes, right?
And there's a lot of, compared to what they have to work around in the season, there's a lot of time. Granted, it's 100 people.
So you tell the players, hey, we need you to take your finals Monday or whatever so we can get back.
You can't really schedule your finals, but
you can schedule them to an extent, right?
No.
Oh, never mind. I thought there were options.
No. They schedule them out from the beginning of the season. So, or the semester. So, but you do have a lot more workaround room because the way it's based at USC, if you have a class at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, Thursday, then everyone who has a class at that time, no matter what class it is, you have a certain schedule that you're allotted to. So like, you can work around it, is what I'm trying to say.
And you're allowed 15 bowl practices, if I remember correctly. So USC is going to want to get back out there as soon as they can, as far as that goes, because you also have Christmas, and that's on a Monday. So
they're
probably
going to be in Texas for Christmas.
Are they leaving that early? Oh.
Yeah, they're leaving on like the 22nd or something.
Yeah, that's it.
They leave early. There's a lot of bowl festivities.
I'll be in Hawaii, guys. You know, it's going to be really rough for Christmas while I'm covering the basketball team in Hawaii.
Yeah. All we can guarantee is that a lot of the fans are going to be upset that they're not practicing enough before the bowl game. So I can guarantee you they're not going to practice. They're not going to push the envelope as far as trying to practice as many times as possible. That's just not kind of what they do. Do we want to talk about who would replace Tyson Helton?
Yeah, someone says, Simon says, quick short list for QB coach / passing game coordinator candidates. Hilarious names are welcome. Hilarious.
Nice. I don't know if you need like a passing game coordinator. It's not like a required spot, but if T ends up staying, I'd love to see him he's running the offense.
Do you think T stays?
I didn't think before. I kind of think so now. I think he would like a head coaching job, and there was there was times he was going to leave before for sure. I mean, I know that for certain, and that just never worked out. I kind of think this opens up the door for him to stay, and be like the full-on, he calls everything offensive coordinator, and having someone down on the field. I think they should have had one of those guys down on the field with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold doesn't really talk to anybody. He kind of sits there and he does this, like if he's watching, that's what he does, and it's like looking around. Having a quarterback coach down there, I haven't thought of any like quarterback coach names, but getting someone that, if Sam Darnold comes back, that you could work with him, or obviously you're going to be developing young guys if not. But I think it will be, because it's not his brother anymore, this will be like T show running the offense, and then like a quarterback helping Sam or whoever.
And I think T. Martin, I didn't think him going to Tennessee. I was asked about this last week, especially I went to school in East Tennessee, so a bunch of people were asking me, about his credentials, basically.
Yeah.
And I said I didn't think it was a good fit for him to go there for his career, because I think he's going to go into a dumpster fire there and try to turn things around. And when you're playing against Kirby Smart and Georgia's got it rolling, and some of the schools over there, I think the UCF job is a terrific fit for him. I don't know how big of a candidate is, or if he's even interviewed for that type of job. SMU, a little bit to the same effect. You're in fertile recruiting grounds, which is what he does really well. You have an opportunity to prove yourself in a conference where there's always going to be one or two pretty good teams, but there's not a Boise State type of team there that's just been consistently running the conference. So I think that either one of those positions would be really good spots for T. Martin's career, because then you show what you can do, and you pull a Scott Frost or Willie Taggart. You're there for a year or two, and you can prove that you can win. Then you can bounce to a Power 5 school the next year. I think he can also do that with a really good year at USC as the offensive coordinator next year. But if those positions come open, I think he should go after either one of those.
I think with T too, like this is only his second year being a coordinator, so I think that's a knock against him. I think one more year, especially if they have a lot of success, would be good. He's putting dudes in the NFL. That's a nice part of the resume. But if you want to be a head coach, if he doesn't get one after this year, I think one more year, and if they make the playoff or something, he can say like, hey, we won the Rose Bowl, we won the Pac-12, we made the playoff as him being the offensive coordinator. I think all of that would help. But only 2 years as a coordinator, I think that's a little bit of a knock too.
Yeah.
A name that I would have thrown out there if he wasn't just hired by Oregon State again was Mike Raley. I mean, I think he would be a good staff addition anywhere, and he's an offensive guy. But he was just hired by Oregon State. Just announced his hire earlier this day.
They could. I mean, if they really wanted him, they could say, "Hey."
Yeah, I don't think he's leaving Corvallis. I think that's the one place where.
If you go back to Corvallis, you're staying in Corvallis.
Yeah.
But any short list? Any other names for the QB?
Off the top of my head,
I
don't know a bunch of QB coaches off the top of your head.
I would say go do a Dylan McCullough and just go like, don't say, hey, this guy, Rodney Peete, he played at USC, like he could be no, he's in the media. Like where's a good quarterback? Who's Oklahoma State's quarterback coach? Go get him. Like do something like that. Like who has good quarterbacks? Go hire their coach away from them. Like I would say do that.
Let's see. Charles really wants this question answered, so let's do
Okay,
it.
Charles.
He listened to Gerard's recruiting podcast with you last night, he says.
That's premium, so we can't talk about that.
Oh, well, he's going to ask
That's
a
okay.
question about it. Why would we offer kids when they're ready to commit? Gerard mentioned that we are not ready to accept a commitment. This is a crazy question. Or worded weird. Okay, hold on. Basically,
Offers get handed
There we
out.
go.
They're not committable offers. That is just the common recruiting game now, because an offer just means, hello, we're going to watch you.
Right.
If you perform really well, we are interested in continuing to follow you. It is not, hello, do you want to come to our school right now? That's and that's a 5-year difference. I mean, 5 years ago, committable offers, and some schools would not offer a kid unless they were willing to take the commitment. Now, an offer just means that you're watching a guy. That's why you offer kids when they're in 9th grade or even before that, is because it is not a binding agreement. If it was a binding agreement, you wouldn't see those 9th grade offers. I can promise you that. There'd be like one kid a year, because you never know how a kid's going to develop in those 4 years of high school. Look at David Sills. Guy was supposed to be the quarterback. Look at how good he is as a receiver. You wouldn't have Kiffin would not have thrown that offer out there unless he knew, especially at the quarterback position, that guy is a guy that can come in and play this position for us, because you can't miss on that position in particular.
people are asking, do we have any updates on Porter Gustin? We do not.
The ghost of Porter Gustin is still missing. Maybe he'll lurk up in these practices coming up. You never know.
Never know.
Yeah.
The bowl game was going to be the earliest he was going to be back. I mean, that's kind of what we figured after the Arizona State setback, the fact that they overused him in that game, if he's even back in the bowl game.
George says, is Stephen Carr ready to be the man next year? Yes. Simple.
Which kind of makes you wonder where Cedric Ware stands for me. Cedric Ware, I think, played one snap on offense in the Pac-12 championship game.
Oh, geez.
His role as kind of the power back and has kind of been usurped by Vi Malapai. So does he seek somewhere else? I believe maybe he can grad transfer as well if that's something that interests him, or maybe he really likes it here. Just because of the fact that Ronald Jones may be gone as well, who's probably his best friend on the team. So that I kind of wonder if he might be a guy that you see leave. If not, then there may still be opportunities, because the running backs that USC is looking at right now, and Michael Salahuddin, who is committed, is not that type of back. He's more of a scat back guy that will catch the ball in the backfield. So I think his opportunities would come, running between the tackles.
Someone whose name I forgot said, will we see a change in punt returner in the Cotton Bowl?
Nah.
Probably not. At this point.
They said because there were 3 weeks, now they'll have more practice time. No. They've been practicing special teams all season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Practice.
Yes.
And yet somehow it still ended up with 10 players on the field last game.
Yeah, if you're just going to flip on the Pac-12 network, watch the USC games in 60 minutes, and just randomly you're bound to see a ball like kind of bouncing inside the 20 down inside the 5. Just if you see a USC play, they let that happen all the time. But I don't see that changing.
People already want our Ohio State predictions.
It's way too early for that.
Not
We're
giving it.
we're not doing that yet.
We got to have things to talk about next week.
Plus, there could be injuries and stuff, and I'm not going to be stuck on a prediction now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much.
Nice. We're right about 1:00.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
Someone asked, will we ever have a fullback again? No.
Is Ruben Peters? He's a senior, right? Is he? Was Peters a senior, or he's not?
I think he's a redshirt junior.
Oh, maybe he's got one more year.
Just how many offenses do you see in college football that use a fullback? It's just not prevalent
Yeah.
anymore. The game has changed, and unless you see rule changes that eliminate the 3-yard buffer that offensive linemen have to get downfield, then you'll see, if they go to the NFL rule where it's only 1 yard, then maybe you see more fullbacks being used, because then you can't run as much read option stuff. You have to actually have a play called, or less RPO stuff, rather than being able to, pull the ball out and your linemen are 3, 4, 5 yards down the field sometimes and don't get called. Then unless they really work on that, you're not going to see the fullback come in, because you can do different things with the RPO actions.
I think it usually happens when you play like a Stanford or something, or like whenever you, like the power teams, people start asking questions like that, like why don't we go under center and why don't
USC did go under center
4
4 times.
4 times in the whole game.
You know how many times they've gone under center
Only
this whole
one with
season?
a kneel down, yeah.
Oh, 5 times if you count the kneel down.
Oh, okay.
Not counting kneel downs this season. Anybody got a guess on how many times? Ryan, you read it, so
I think I read it, so.
you have a guess.
I
Or
feel
you
like
guys get your quick
18.
comments.
18.
USC
Way
had
too
gone
high.
under center 12 times before this game.
Man, I was
And they
gonna
went
say
4 times in this game.
So that's
4
a
runs
lot.
to Ronald Jones, including his last touchdown run. So, they did some different things. They went Stanford. They out-Stanford to Stanford. A lot of 2 tight end sets, even 3 tight end on the 4th down play, something they had done, I think, 5 times so far this year using 3 tight ends. So they did some different things this game. So you people that say they never make any adjustments, there you go. But they also, it was kind of interesting that they did it. They went Stanford's route and then beat Stanford at their own game.
Which they did the first time around, too. But
They just out physical the first time, where this time it was more the formations and stuff, I thought. A little bit different.
we usually get a flurry at the end
I
when
know.
people.
People want our overall grades of the season, but the season isn't over yet.
Yeah, and as Keely said last week, she was dead on point. It's the first time all season she has.
Can you let me bask in this moment, please?
First time in her life or first time all season?
Oh, wow. I was so close to a real compliment. Continue.
But no, Keely nailed it last week. She said, how the season is perceived will be based off the Pac-12 championship. And USC loses that game, a lot more Helton haters and fire Helton, whereas now it's like, oh, they won the Pac-12 championship first time since 2008. Even if you lose the bowl game, if you do it in a close fashion, you don't get boat race, then, I think then you look at this as a successful season still.
Someone says, who do you blame more for USC missing the playoffs, USC or the Pac-12?
That's a tough one. Someone said if they were a one-loss team, would they still be in? And I think that depends on the loss.
I think they would be.
Because-
I think either one, I think they'd be in.
You think so? Even the Notre Dame getting
Yeah.
blown out?
What do you say? Sorry, I was reading.
I think, if USC
If
doesn't
USC was a
play.
one-loss team.
Okay, so I'm going to blame, I think USC's to blame too, but I think the Pac-12, if USC's not playing Washington State on a Friday night and they're playing on Saturday instead, I mean, it was a, 3-point game? Like, they could have easily won that game, right? Like, that's, the teams are 0-7 or something playing on Friday night after, following a road game. If they win that Washington State game, I don't think they get blown out like they did against Notre Dame either. Now, Notre Dame had a bye week and no class that week, heading into USC. So everything was kind of.
And USC had their top defensive tackle get in a car wreck. So
Yeah, there was all kinds of weird stuff. But I think a one-loss USC team would make it in. A lot of people are like, no. I think it's easier to jump Alabama above a 2-loss conference champion. I don't think it would have been as easy to bump against a 1-loss.
Interesting. And in that case, you are blaming the Pac-12 for scheduling that game.
Yeah.
I would say I'd blame the Pac-12 for that too. USC definitely has their faults that they should be blamed for as well.
Plus, if you throw in a bye week anywhere in the schedule, does that change anything? I mean, even just going into the Notre Dame game, if you have a Josh Fatu back, if you have someone back, that makes a big difference. I don't know.
Stop making good points, Keely. But it's not even just that, too. It's the other teams in the Pac-12. Stanford went to freaking Australia. Like, if they didn't go to Australia, did they lose to San Diego State? Like, maybe not. I mean, Washington had to play Stanford on a Friday night on the road. What if Washington wins that game? Then USC's playing Washington and they have a better opponent to go against. There's a lot of factors in this that's not just USC. It's all the other teams in the Pac-12. Those good teams they've screwed with too.
You point out the bye before Notre Dame. If you imagine that game is pushed back a week to where the Arizona State, you have Porter Gustin, even though he probably shouldn't have played as much as he did, but USC struggled so much on the edge in that game early.
Yeah.
You would have had him there, more experienced player. You also have Josh Fatu, against Notre Dame's rushing attack. I think you have a vastly different game there than what ends up happening. I think those 2 injuries in particular against that team changes the complexion of the game. And even if you don't even if you don't win, you still don't lose by 40 points or whatever it was.
Yeah. Or you have a Michael Pittman come back because he came back for the ASU game. Because you just have so many things. Maybe Darnold's ankle heals a little bit more. There's so many ifs if you put in a bye week or anything. There were so many little things that were just off with the Notre Dame game, and that's not excuses for USC, but those are things that factor into the game, and you put in a bye week, and who knows what happens.
And it's almost like they've been playing football for several years with those bye weeks for a reason.
decent, maybe.
Like it's physically demanding.
That was the weird thing is talking to the players and we're like during the bye week, for them to all say like, yeah, I've never played 12 weeks in a row in my life. Like no one's ever had to do that before. No one ever asked a player to do that ever.
And the thing was, before the season, they're like, no, it shouldn't be a big deal. We're just going to take every game one at a time. And then after it happened, they're like, wow, I didn't realize the impact it would have.
Yeah.
Both Cam Smith and Sam Darnold told me they had a long conversation with each other about how it was such a big deal and they didn't realize it. And they were like, it really, really took a toll. Sam told me that at the ASU game, let alone at the end of the season, how much a toll that took on the team is just unbelievable.
And you just look at the way the team was refreshed when they came back to practice, getting a couple days off for Thanksgiving, getting to kind of reset their mind. And they looked like a new team.
Yeah.
As I said many times in the podcast last week.
3 of the other 4 Pac-12 teams that had November bye weeks got blown out. Like, they didn't look good at all. So maybe it was good that Clay Helton gave them a week off and didn't, get back to practice. Just like, you know what, you had no bye week, just take the week off.
Also, everyone forgets they're still students. They're still, having homework, doing stuff. Midterm week is Notre Dame week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how much you're pulling all-nighters to do your midterms and then you're going and playing a team across the country? I don't know.
And Notre Dame had no class that week.
Also, it was all a little bit different.
Yeah, so who knows? We got a lot more questions while we were
Crap.
on
All
our
right.
little
Well, we
rant.
should probably.
Yes, I know.
We'll try to answer some of these on our podcast, actually.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
The Family Feud. You can't get enough of us talking at you guys.
Who do you think will be the next breakout juniors and seniors next year?
Tester Troy, right? I hope YK 14. I would agree with that. I think he has a good chance at that.
For juniors and seniors.
I'm trying to figure out who. I think Christian Rector.
I think Jonathan Lockett's coming back.
Yeah,
I think people
that could be
forget.
interesting.
Question
I
mark.
think people forget about how good he was at the beginning of the season last year as a nickelback, which is another thing with Keely Ross is like, I mean, they've got some quality depth coming back, especially if Iman Marshall does indeed return to school. The DBs should be a pretty good group, even if they lose Chris Hawkins and potentially Marvell Tell.
Yeah, that whole lineup will be interesting. The backfield.
John Houston, how much better has he played in the second half of the season than the first half?
Way better.
Jordan Iosefa.
And you just look at these players and we talk about how, hey, they got some playing time before, but when you get that extended playing time like they have, which is part of the reason why I want to see guys like Levi Jones get those 3, 4, 5 plays, those building blocks that you get as you play a little bit more can mean so much.
Omar says, shotgun, what is your projected O-line next year?
Ooh.
Do you need my little hands like we did the other?
we did this previously. At left tackle, I think that you're going to have Austin Jackson, and then maybe it's Jackson versus Jackson Carmen, maybe if they can pull him in. I think that kid is an absolute stud. I think he can come in and play right away. Similar to, I thought Austin Jackson was athletic enough, needed to get bigger, and you've seen him do that this year. I think you're going to have similar interior. You're going to have Chris Brown. I think Toa Lobendon could move to center. I think that's better for his career potential in the NFL.
Yeah.
So I think that would be more fitting for him. I think at right guard, you've got Andrew Voorhees seems to be kind of entrenched there. And then right tackle, you're going to have Chuma Edoga. If he stays, if he doesn't become the guy that we're like, why are you going to the NFL? Then him and Clayton Johnson. I think Clayton Johnson could also compete for that left tackle spot too.
The glass half full of all the O-line injuries this season is that guys like Austin Jackson, Andrew Voorhees get a ton more reps, and so you're not starting off with these freshmen or not. They would have been redshirt freshmen. They won't be as green. You have Andrew Voorhees who has significant reps. You have a lot of guys who won't be thrown into it as new guys.
I'm interested to see how Nathan Smith comes back from his knee injury. They seemed to be high on him before he was injured. So
very interesting.
We will see. All right. Well,
definitely some talent there.
Yeah.
I think we're going to wrap it up.
Yes.
Is that good?
That's good. We're out of questions.
Nice work.
Besides the ones we're going to answer on the
That's over there. Shotgun, Spratling, and Keely Eure. Good job, guys. Check out USCfootball.com for all of their stuff. Covered some high school this weekend. We got some recruiting stuff going on now, so that'll be a little bit crazy.
Tester Troy wants predictions. No Tester Troy.
No Tester
Tune
Troy.
in next week.
Next week we'll keep doing these. I think we'll get Chris back. We'll do the 4-person one. This week was a little crazy because we had to do the podcast before, and then we're going to go right into their podcast afterwards. So lots of us talking, but we appreciate you guys have sent in so many questions. It's awesome. We do appreciate that.
Yes.
And yeah, hope you keep enjoying it. Enjoy the fact that USC
enjoying it.
enjoy the fact that USC won the Pac-12 title. I guess if you hate Clay Helton or what all this stuff,
No, if you're a fan,
just
you should be happy.
enjoy that USC won the Pac-12 title.
What did they win? Championship.
They're the champions of the Pac-12. Feel good about it. Just enjoy it. Don't get tied up in all the other crap. Just hey, that's a good thing.
It's got some zen at the end. Just enjoy.
Yeah, just enjoy. All right. I'm going to get back to my house and start scraping some more ceilings and painting and stuff.
Fun stuff.
Installing closets. It's all good stuff. Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yeah. Thanks so much. We will talk to you guys next time.